Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Rise and Resonate. This is a podcast dedicated for those who want to lead with influence, make needed impact, and earn more income. I'm Alicia Pisani. I'm a motivational speaker, #1 international best-selling author, journalist, coach, and I'm happy to start with you today. Good morning. Welcome to Rise and Resonate. I'm Alicia Pisani. I am a lot of things, and one of the things that I hold dear is that I'm a leader. I lead in everything I do. It didn't start out that way. I had to learn lessons that came to me even when I didn't expect them. And if you're a leader today, you know that there's a lot that you need. Things are shifting faster now than ever. In this landscape, the ones who thrive tend to have a strong grasp and a handful of what are important. They know the impactful topics. And I'm here today to help you, to give you a clear modern breakdown of what truly matters right now. Not the fluff, it's just the essential things that will shape competitive, resilient leaders. Now, this is a noisy world, isn't it? So you need to have a strategic leadership plan. You need to have a vision. It has to be long-term, strategic thinking that balances innovation with operational discipline. If you're a business owner, if you are a CEO, a manager, director of a department, there's a lot that goes into it. You've got to navigate uncertainty. You have to think about how to plan ahead of the things that happen. You've got to take the data that you get and use that in your decision making. In leadership, that data-driven decision making has to be your #1 thing that you do. There's the technology. We can talk about technology all day, and it's everywhere you look. So think about what you do in your life. Think about what you've done before. Think about those people who've been your mentors and know that you can have an awakening within yourself to make sure that you dive into that technology. There's going to be changes now than greater than what we've seen, maybe even in our lifetimes. Those of you who were leaders years ago might remember the invention of new technologies, and we feared the end of certain technologies, and we've gone through a lot of change in such a short time, and now things are going even faster, even farther. So the one thing that I'll ask you to do when it comes to technology is, yes, AI literacy. It's to get the understanding of the capabilities, the risks, and figure out what coding you have to do, but then balance that out with the risk management side of the house, right? Make sure that you are aware of the changes that can happen in cybersecurity, in automation, how to not only cut costs, but redesign. That's going to be how you're going to navigate the technology landscape. Now, I want to move to culture and people, the most important part of your organization. Now, we know that things are shifting fast. I've already mentioned it. But we also need to make sure that our employees are moving fast. We need to make sure that they're equipped with what they need, not just the training, but also to figure out what it is that they are going to need. Help them so that they can have this right strategy in place as well. And there's a lot that goes into us as people, right? We need to balance the work, the home life. If something doesn't sit well with us, a lot of people don't speak up. They don't share what they are really feeling. But in terms of being a good leader, you've got to be tapped in. You've got to learn about who they are and how they're reacting to the things that are coming their way. So remember, your organizational health is important, but perhaps your people health is even more important. As a career coach, I've done a lot of work with people, and I know that there's things that even they're not aware of. A good leader is a mentor, and they'll bring those things out to the surface. They'll do it in a safe way so that people feel free and can utilize new things. They can be the pencil in the hand of the leader. So you've got a lot on your shoulders, but you can do it. Um, the next thing we want to talk about is the idea that the performance, and I'm hesitating because this one is a little dicey. It's changing as well. Diversity, equity, and inclusion. Not as a checkbox, but as a performance lever. Someone may have never been a developer. Maybe they've never coded, but with the invention of AI, they can code. And that's something that is very important in today's world, that if you are into the health of your people, you'll see where you can leverage talents and discover new things about the people that you employ or even about yourself. Now, there's a whole list of things we have to do as leaders, depending on where you are in your career, but there's understanding of the trends happening in the world, the inflation, the interest rates, global markets. You have to understand how to get the return on your investments across competing priorities with AI, social media, with all the areas that we have to dip our toes or even take a full gamut and own all of it. It's important that you have to understand where you're getting a return. A coach said to me yesterday, and I have a coach too, because we all good leaders know that we can't do it alone. And he really made me stop and think on what I'm getting back for my business. As a business owner, we do a lot of things, and I was getting caught up in doing the things instead of doing the things that gave me the return I needed. So we have to be very strategic. And even though I'm an author, I've written books both on emotional intelligence and strategy, resilience. I've also written books on it. And last year, the book that I wrote was 25 Essentials to Thrive. And so the plan and framework that's in there is what worked for me. So if you haven't seen the book, I encourage you to check it out and see how you can utilize it. It's going to take you far fast. A lot of leaders, coaches, and speakers, people that I know, they've gone down the wrong path. They've spent time on things they shouldn't have. And it's one of the things where you can utilize what you need so that you can become the right leader at the right time in your business and in the world. So this episode is about understanding what we need to do. We need to foster experimentation without chaos. We need to manage change fatigue, and we need to build the collaboration so that we can innovate. So if you think about it, we're here because we want to create greater impact, expand influence, and unlock the income that we deserve. And if we think about how we can do it, I want you to stop. Think about a moment when you saw innovation stop because teams were overwhelmed or siloed. It's happening in many businesses, and it's so easy to have that happen. If you have someone who's good at something, or perhaps you're good at that one thing, so you do it, and you do it well, and you take pride in that, you feel good about it. Maybe there's too much to do, and you just get involved in doing too much. So if any of these things resonate with you, you're not alone. This is the reality check that I want to do with you today. Frame the idea that you can get where you can get the goal without suffocating that goal, right? If you make sure that you have that mindfulness and you're aware of what is needing to change, then you won't allow yourself to be drowned by it. Now, as a leader, we're taught to move fast, get things done, hit the mark, hit the goals, but we're not taught how to make sure that there's safety or structure in place. And the result? It's chaos, burnout, and stalled progress. So let's break down the leadership capabilities that separate the chaos from the innovation that you need today. Topic one is experimentation. Why does it matter? Innovation doesn't come from the big leaps. It comes from the small leaps, the small steps that you take when you are able to fail, because then you'll know what went wrong. Barbara Corcoran always talks about the things that failed before she did the thing that worked for her. And even in her business, that's how she runs it. If you think about the leaders of today, the leaders of our past that have success, Les Brown is one of my favorites. He said a lot of things, but the thing that he said that I want you to think about is, if you can look up, you can get up. So if you think about that, it means you had to have failed. You had to have stalled. And that's where, if you can think about what you need, the problem of experimenting without any boundaries being defined is solved, because you need that freedom within the framework. And I talk a lot about the frameworks that I offer. I have mini resilient labs. I have framework that will take you to where you want to go. But the thing that we want to do is break it down. So, number one, define what is in scope and what's not. And make sure that you set a time frame. So, if you do those two things and decide what that is going to be up front, it's easy, because you can try it, you can fail fast, and then you'll see if it works. And then you move to the next step, right? We're not going to say we're going to build an application, or we're going to start a brand new company, or open up a storefront. Instead, we're going to say what is in scope and what's not for this 2 week time period. Maybe we're going to do the research. Maybe we're going to talk to people. Maybe we're going to meet with a financial person who can help us understand our business plan and what do we need in place. You're going to take the steps, and if you can't get everything you need, then you're not going to go and rent a space, because you need other things first before you can open your doors. This is just one example how you can give yourself the freedom within the framework to take that challenge and tackle it. So your takeaway is that if you allow the experiment, it's not chaos if you create the clarity, right? So freedom within a framework, experiment, not chaos, because you've created the clarity. And when you have clarity, when you have clear requirements, that is the ultimate way to excel forward. Now, the second topic is change fatigue. I know that people oftentimes take steps to understand where they spend their time. And sometimes you look back and you say, what have I been doing the last 3 months? I don't see the results I wanted. Well, if you look at that, you might find that change fatigue, when change happens and you're not getting the goals that you want, there's an emotional and cognitive load of constant change that becomes not resistance, not laziness. It's the human brain hitting the limit on uncertainty, ambiguity, and shifting priorities. And I experienced something like this just this week. I was learning things about AI, and I was trying to tackle my responsibilities. Um, it was my daughter's birthday, and she was going to pick what we were going to eat. Well, she didn't know, and I had to wait. And next thing you know, by the middle of the week, everything just piled on. I didn't know why I felt so tired. It reminded me when I was in my 20s and I was working on a new project, new technologies, and then it hit me. That's what this is. It's change fatigue. So be kind with yourself, be kind with your employees. There is an emotional labor that goes into a changing environment. So try to be clear in what you're doing so that everyone doesn't have that change fatigue, including yourself. Now, leaders often communicate what is changing, but not why or what it means for you. And if you're not thinking about it, there's a way that you can start to change this. You can use the 3 R's of change capacity: um, rhythm, relevance, and recovery. So if you have a rhythm, it means that only one thing is the urgency at a time. Everything else will fall in line. You have a rhythm where there's a pace to it. You have relevance. Whenever there's something to be done, you connect it to a personal meaning or a purpose. So this way, everything is relevant in its own way, at its own time. And then you have recovery. That's when there's moments of pause where you can reflect and recalibrate so that everyone feels refreshed and not just like a constant cycle of work and change where they have to keep up. So the takeaway is you don't want the change to burn people out, including yourself. And if poorly led change does that, then you can use the 3 R's: rhythm, relevance, and recovery to help yourself and your team regain energy and momentum. Um, Now, the topic that I want to talk about also is the cross-functional collaboration. And I know that sometimes it's easy. You have a backup. I think about that in my own house. If I'm working late and I reach out to my husband or my family and I say, "Hey, I can't get home for dinner. Can you start it without me?" Now, if you have a husband like mine, he might start it, he might not start it. But again, why? We're all doing so much these days. And that's why, more than ever, it's important to think about how these connections make a difference, cross collaboration. So it can happen in your personal life at home, it can happen at work, and it can happen in your business. So cross functional collaboration means that there's going to be more than one person, more than one department, more than one um, function or body of work, right? It's going to involve more than one. And that means there's intersections of people, of work to be done, of situations and departments. So if you have the best ideas, probably they've come from more than just one person, right? They've come from people brainstorming, getting together, and it's rarely in one department or one area. Now, the barriers are because teams don't understand each other's pressures. And on the surface, there's many things that can get in the way. But if you're going to drive that cross functional collaboration, you're going to understand that you can help with those barriers. Now, there's a collaboration, well, the 3 R's we talked about, but there's also a collaboration triangle. And that is where we have shared goals. And we do see that happen, right? But we want to also have shared language. And if you define the terms and define the rules and expectations, Then you have that shared language. For example, if you have a developer and you have a change manager and you have a resource manager, you may end up each one of them doing their own thing, thinking they're working toward that same project, that same outcome. But if they're not using the same things, the same reports, or the same names for things, it may cause barriers. And it's easier just to do it ourselves sometimes. But if you get everyone understanding what you need, then it will help you. The third piece of that triangle is the shared wins. Cross team success is a great motivator. And I think that if you think about the wins on a smaller level, but you cross celebrate those, it's going to help. You're not just at the end saying, "Hey, we did it, we completed it, we made the goal." Instead, it's taking that time to celebrate across the project, across that time, across the people, so that everyone understands that it takes all of us. Collaboration triangle is shared goals, shared language, and shared wins. This has been a lot. And I just want you leaders to know that when you master these skills, you're not just going to drive the innovation in this change environment, but you're going to create the environment where things will thrive, people will want to contribute and stay. Experimentation with structure, managing change fatigue, or cross-functional collaboration. Which will you do? This is Rise and Resonate, where you learn to lead with greater impact, more influence, and the income that you deserve.